Welcome to the Bearded Dangler. We're diving deep with the real people of search and rescue, sharing stories and advice.
Paul, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Andy.
Welcome to the Bearded Dangler.
Thank you for inviting me, mate.
That's
No
good.
problem at all.
This is purely a discussion and an interview about your life and how you came to be sitting here in front of me today, how you got into SAR and the trials and tribulations of like your career to this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
It's going to be a good story. Forget the cameras.
Right.
You're just speaking to me.
Okay, so honestly, the one of the reason I'm in SAR is through sheer luck more than anything. Okay,
Mhm.
so prior to getting into this industry, I was a tradesman.
Uh-huh.
And even for some time before I got this job, it was always in my head that this isn't something I wanted to do for the rest of my days. I didn't want to be in an industry that just pleased people. It started to get to me after a while, and I was always looking for something. I just never knew what it was. So I was working on a house. I'd got a job to go to a house and work there for about a week. It turned out I was there for about a month because they just kept adding more work on it. So I got very friendly with the owner of the house, and it turns out, really nice guy, a guy called Jeff Williams. He was the MD of a company called Offshore Helicopters, Bond Offshore Helicopters. And me being me and cheeky, I just went, any jobs going? And he went, do you know something? He said, we've always got jobs. He said, we've always got ramp operatives. And, I was like, well, what's one of them sort of thing?
Yeah.
This is how, dumb I was to the aviation industry. And he said, but if you're interested, he said, we've got something coming up in about a year's time. And he said, we've got search and rescue contract. And he said, we want to man the winchman with non-winchman experience. He said, we want to take on people, the right people, and train them to be winchmen. I thought, oh, I'll have a bit of that. So, right enough, about a year later, I checked online to the website, and there was these job applicants. So I applied for the job as a winchman.
What age were you at this point?
I was 38 at this point. So, I was...
Spring chicken.
I was yeah.
Because now you're what?
Now I'm 60. So I'm
okay.
20 odd years into my aviation history.
Yeah.
So as I say, I went through the interview. It was quite a stringent interview. Fitness test, swim test, medical, psychometric testing, you name it. They threw everything at us. And eventually they went, okay, you've got the job. And I'm like, wow, okay. So about a week later, I got a phone call from them and said, look, Paul, you're the only guy out of all of them, the people that we've taken on, and we've taken on 8 brand new winchmen. You're the only one. It's literally never even been in a helicopter. I'm like, where's this going? And so he says, why don't you? He said, this was like January of 2005. So why don't you come and work for us? The contract was, I was due to start training in October of 2005.
So a bit of a lead-in time.
So a bit of a lead-in time. He said, why don't you come and work for us for 6 months until the contract starts? It's your job. It's just that we would like you to come. So I'm like, okay, I can do that. So I finished doing what I was doing, and I came to Bond Offshore Helicopters to work. And initially they put me on the operations room. So I was in the ops room.
Mm-hmm.
Instantly, within like 3 days of being sure what to do, I was like, hey, it's yours, right, off you go. And you're talking to the aircraft and radios, and you're sorting out this. There's lots of admin to do.
Yeah.
So I'd done that for a couple of months, and then I went into ramp, and I'd done some ramp work, towing aircraft, loading, passengers coming on and off. So I got really familiar with being around the helicopters. And then we started the training.
That's really good, like, basic training, though. Like, that's really good lead-in into how the company wanted to develop you a little bit.
It was very, very much immersive. It was like, you're sink or swim. You're in there. You better just get it done, and you better get on with it.
And it was you must have felt like it was a long interview. Did you feel like you were getting watched for that whole time?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you didn't perform for those 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chain of command. Everybody knows, they get a report on you and how you're doing, how you're getting on, how you can I mean, obviously they were looking for people that's quite resilient. You can think on your own, 2 feet.
On
you
time.
can, you're on time. All these sorts of things, problem solving, all these sorts of things, which obviously what they were looking for in the qualities of what they thought they could train a winchman to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd done that for, as I say, 6 months, and then the training started, which even then, after 6 months in, it was still like an avalanche of information to take in. We had lots of ground school, and you've got to remember that I came from an industry that didn't do procedures. They didn't do risk assessments,
Were you a tradie on building sites, or were you
I've done
just
both. I've done both, commercial and domestic.
Okay.
So you didn't have that kind of thing. You didn't have ops manuals, So, and also we live in aviation on acronyms. We love acronyms in aviation.
Yeah.
And of course, coming from an industry where you didn't have any of that, I was like blown away. Just blown away with the amount of information.
Yeah. If we pause a second, because the SAR unit that we're talking about that you joined was the jigsaw program that BP set up.
It was.
Can you explain that a little bit more,
Right,
how that came about and then why they were looking for all these people?
Okay, so I believe it came about because BP had decided they wanted to have their own search and rescue helicopters. It was part of their safety case.
Yeah.
So I think prior to that, there was always a standby vessel at every one of their assets. And this, we're talking, 20 odd years ago, they had lots of assets in the North Sea, and
they were the major player.
They were the major player, and they wanted to have their own aircraft, but also it combined with vessels as well. So they had what we call RSVs, which were regional support vessels, which also carried 2 ARCs, which were autonomous vessels, which also had 2 rescue craft on as well.
Yeah.
So it basically meant you had 5 vessels in one. So you call the RSV the mothership. It would go into the middle of a field. It would separate out the ARCs and the rescue boats to go and do the jobs that they were expected to do.
Yeah.
However, there was a need from BP to basically fulfill their safety case, was that we had to be able to rescue 21 people from the water and take them to a place of safety within 2 hours.
Yeah. And the vessels couldn't do that, really.
The vessels couldn't do that.
Not with sea states.
And this is where they have the difficulties come in, because they may have a limitation to what they can actually achieve.
Yeah.
So we were the 2 assets that they put in. So we were based, one was based on the Miller platform to cover all the central and northern North Sea, and then the other aircraft was put in the Sunbra, which would cover the east and west of Shetlands, obviously, because they had all their assets there. So, as I say, Bond got this contract, and they decided that they would man 50% of the crew, so that all the experienced people, winch operators, would become from military, or they'd come with previous winch shop experience. And the winchmen, so there was 8 winch operators employed, and then 8 winchmen, and all the winchmen had come from non-winchman backgrounds.
Okay, yeah.
There was an array of backgrounds. We had commercial diver, ex-policeman, lots of
some paramedics.
Some paramedics, yes, yeah. But at that time, paramedic wasn't the requirement to be a winchman. That level of input wasn't required at that point. So, from Bond's point of view, they decided that they would take on 50% experience, 50% no experience. So it was thrown, as I said before, it was thrown in at deep end. We were employed. We started our training, and we were instantly sent to RAF Valley, where we attended the College of Search and Rescue Medicine for 2 weeks of intensive medical training.
Yeah.
So we all passed that after 2 weeks. Back to Aberdeen, straight back into training again.
That's a big lot of training in 2 weeks.
There was a big lot of training in 2 weeks. So we all passed it. We all, the thing is that for the majority of us, we were all in the same position. So there wasn't one any better than the other. We were all, new to it.
Yeah.
So everything was new to it. So there was nobody any better than everybody else. It was a good mix of people.
Were the wind shops, did they do any of that training with you as well?
They didn't do any of that training with us. Because they'd come with medical.
Yeah.
They were doing different kind of medical courses. They were probably doing in-house courses while we were doing external courses.
Yeah.
So we come back and we'd start straight into the training. Then you got to remember that none of us had ever done this before. So the first start of the training post all the ground school was to go to Wick. So we fly up to Wick and we do all the dry training, everything that we'd learned on ground school, all the the winch changeovers, high lines, everything we'd done on the airfield at Wick.
So you flew from Aberdeen to Wick every day.
Every day.
Did lots of training, and then flew home with it.
Yeah, you play. And then there was a stage where we started doing all the day training. So the day training was in various positions. Sometimes we was off the Peterhead coast, and we'd have life rafts out there, and we'd do life raft training off Peterhead. And other times we'd go down to Dundee, and we'd fly into Dundee at night, land on, everybody gets out, new crew gets in, and we'd fly over to south of Dundee, and we'd meet up with one of the RSVs. They put their arcs out, and we'd train with the arcs, so that we started to get some sort of combination of us starting to work together.
Yeah,
because it was
that knowledge and understanding between crew
of how the boats work, how fast they go. I mean, these were really, really good training.
Yes,
training.
Because you're building all the ops manuals at the same time. Obviously, like what's the capabilities of the aircraft compared to the vessels? What procedures we need to put in place? All that.
Yeah, so that was all being built in the background. So we'd done all that, and then we went live. I think I went live in the April of 2006. So basically, we had about 6 months of training. But the good thing from then to now, how we do it nowadays, is then the contract wasn't live until we were all trained.
Right.
So it was a case of getting everybody through, and then the contract sort of went live. Whereas nowadays, we're completely live all the time, and people come, and we have to, the trainers have to get them up to a level while we're still trying to provide, a service.
Yeah, piggybacking off the back of that. And that's difficult. That's got its complications, doesn't it? Pros and cons.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. It's got to work both ways, and I've seen it on both sides of the fence, what it's like to try and manage it and plan it. It's never an easy thing to do. There's so many different things to take into consideration, which are normally the things that will happen. You do all this planning, and then a tasking comes in.
Yeah.
You do all this planning, and the aircraft has a problem. You do all this planning, and then the weather stops it. Yeah. So there's always something. So you're always, I think, particularly for us in SAR, we've always got more than one plan, because you have to.
You have to. You start with a plan
every
hour, and it changes, doesn't
it? That's what you're taught, isn't it? That things change all the time. Just never take anything for granted.
No.
I mean, I think the worst thing you can do is get familiar with things, because if you get too familiar, then that's normally when you're going to have a problem. If you go to the same vessel all the time, you do the same thing all the time, at some point you're going to forget that one day that vessel had a new aerial fitted and you didn't see it.
Yeah.
Things like that, you just got to make sure you don't get
sets in, doesn't it? Absolutely. Normalities. So
yeah, absolutely.
So you went live. Back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah. So I was a winchman for 3 years. Operationally. In fact, I was a winchman for 5 years, but after 3 years, we were given the option from the company to either train to be a winch operator, because they were obviously looking at future, maybe dual rolling, having, winchman, winch operator roles, or you could have the option to go to paramedic. So at this time, the standard had been set that really to be a winchman nowadays, well, even then, was minimum standard is going to have to be paramedic.
Yeah.
So I gave it a lot of thought, and obviously with my family and all the rest of it, and I was, as much as I do love the medical side of things, I just felt that because I'm away for 2 weeks at a time, and I'd spend a lot more time while I'm at home doing paramedic training, and obviously after you become a paramedic, you need to start putting some time in. And honestly, I just really wasn't committed to doing that. So I went down the winch operator role. So I trained for 2 years on the back of me being a winchman to become a winch operator.
Yeah.
And then I became a winch operator. It just so happened that we had a winch operator left, and it just made a position just came up, and it was just like perfect timing. I'd done my SAR check, and literally a couple of weeks later, I was operational as a winch operator. Can you imagine me, a winch operator? Yeah, so I was operational as a winch operator.
5 years ago. holding a roller and a paintbrush.
Yeah, exactly,
And now you're
yeah.
in charge of the winch.
Well,
Yeah.
I think people do ask me this. What's the difference? And I said, well, the difference is that I was in a job where I was paid to please people, and I can never please all the people all the time. But now I'm in a job where all I do is help people. So, okay, sometimes I might not be able to help them,
Yeah.
but my job is always to help them.
Yeah.
And there's always a lot of fulfillment out of that, So that's kind of how I sort of.
And every job is different. No matter what vessel we're going to or what hour we're going to, that job is always different.
Every job is different. And I would say when you talk about difficulty, I would say we probably train harder than we actually do the jobs.
Yeah.
We train 95% of everything we train for is for the 10% of what we actually do.
Yeah.
Our winching taskings. And I would say I'd say 90% of the time it's harder to do the training than it is to do the taskings.
And we're very self-critical when we go out training. We're very good at debriefing negatives on what we do, but that's only because we pick up the minutiae.
I don't think it's a negative. I think it's more of a constructive criticism. I don't think you should ever take it as a negative. Obviously people do take it as negatives, but it's constructive criticism, and I take it just as as much as give it.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me if somebody says, "Paul, wasn't that." You could have done a bit better there, or you wasn't on it, and I'll go, hands up, okay, that's fine.
That's fine. Everybody's human at the end of the day, isn't
Absolutely.
it?
We all make mistakes. It's just that when we make mistakes, there's going to be a bigger issue when we make a mistake.
A couple of more repercussions over that. So we can get into
a tiny little bit.
Yeah, we can get into that. All right, so you're now a winch operator.
Yeah, so I was
working between the Miller and Sunbra still?
I was still working between the Miller and Sunbra, and then I think it was about a year after I became a winch operator. There was an advert went out within the base for a deputy manager, and I thought, I've got a bit of capacity now. I'm now a winch operator. I'm operational. I mean, the workload and self-induced stress of training to become a winch operator is probably, I would say, the hardest thing I've ever done.
Okay.
Ever. I thought the winchman was hard, but it was really exciting.
Yeah.
Really exciting to be in the end of the wire.
It's a unique job, isn't it?
It is very unique, and there's some days you're hanging on the wire, and you're not thinking about what's around you. You're just sitting there thinking, you're hanging on the wire, thinking, I'm getting paid for this. This is absolutely amazing,
Yeah.
And then other times you're a winchman and you're going to a boat, and all of a sudden you see the propellers coming out of the back end. You go, oh, this is going to hurt.
Yeah, we've both been there. Absolutely. It's the middle of the night, and you're floating above the North Sea. You're about to rescue a dummy out of the water or going to a life raft. You're like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
But this is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about night there, and I think it's not very often I get scared, but I think as a winchman, being in the water at night was the only thing that actually scared me. And I'm not scared of, I'm not scared to be in the water. I'm just, it's a very eerie feeling, especially when you're on the Miller. You're like 160 nautical miles out to sea, and you're the only living thing in that water at that moment. And you turn around and you do a 360, and there's like not a light on, and you think, oh my God, I'm the only thing here. Yeah. And it sort of, gets in your head a little bit. Get me out of here, I'm fine now.
Yeah. Something goes wrong at that point in time when you're floating free in that water. Yeah. Like you could be going in anyway with that tide.
And yet there's other times where we train, we're not on the wire, and we're acting as a casualty, and you're in the water, you're like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
You don't think about anything else, and then you got a helicopter come towards you, and one of your mates has come down the wire to come and get you. I mean, how cool is that?
I know. It's like, I can't believe that we still used to do that, like go out to the Miller and then we would do it 160 miles offshore doing night wets.
Yeah.
Like, imagine that now. But
you'd never get away with that.
You would never get away with that now.
No, you'd have to have a standby vessel on scene in all times and all the rest of it.
Yeah. So difficult.
Yeah, very, very difficult. It's the way it's nature, isn't it? Really, we've become very good at risk assessing,
Mm-hmm.
but unfortunately, you have other parts of the business that risk assesses as well, and they make a decision as well. Well, actually, guys, can you make that safer? Well, yes, we can make that safer. And that's how we put these barriers in place. We talk about the good old days of being able to do it, but when you think about it now, would you really want to do that?
No, I think it's like you said, it's a change in the way risk assessments are done and how the other side of the business looks at our section or our unit. And yeah, they're coming in with fresh eyes, a different approach, and we might see that as making our lives more difficult. It's probably making our lives safer. It might make certain operations more difficult to achieve, but ultimately everybody's there to get everybody home at the end of the night.
Absolutely. And as a winch operator, the last thing you ever want to do is hurt your winchman. It's the worst thing you could ever, if it lives with you for a long time now.
Yeah.
So, as I say, after about 6 years, I got the job as a deputy manager. So I'd done that for literally 10 years and 3 managers. And then the company came to me, we'd lost our previous manager, and the company came to me and said, would you mind stepping up and being a manager, the operations manager? And I went, okay, I could do that for 6 months. Temporary, I'll do it for 6 months, because I'm still online.
Yeah.
I'm still doing online. And 6 months came and went, and I went back to him and said, look, thanks very much, but 6 months is up. I really don't want to do it anymore. I miss my flight. Another manager came in, another manager went, and they came to me again and said, look, we do this, but we want you to do it like full time, come off the line completely. So I went home and I spoke to Libby, and that she was like, well, if that's what you want to do, then that's the next thing, So I thought, okay,
it's your next career.
It's my next challenge. I seem to just find challenges.
Rather than just go to work.
Go to work, get paid, and just like, give me more. So I ended up becoming the operations manager, which I absolutely loved. There's something about being the point of contact for a search and rescue base. There's just something about it, I'd still have, and they still have. There's a great team of guys, who did make my job very easy.
Yeah,
most of the time, and sometimes it was challenging.
As any manager role would be.
So I'd done that for, I think it was about 3.5, 4 years, and I realised that I was getting to a point where if I didn't stop wanting to fly, I'd never get to fly again. There's a point within management, I feel, that you go past that barrier of coming back to being one of the guys again.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm kind of reaching a barrier now where it's like
it's now or never.
I've got to jump or I don't jump. And it just so happens that when I came off the line, the winch operator that I replaced him with had left. And it was like, this is a sign. My line is back open again.
Yeah.
And I just literally went, you know what, I'm just going to go back on the line again. I just missed the flying too much. As I say, I love being with the ops manager. But one of the things that always used to make me sad was waving the guys off on the job.
Yeah.
Like, I could be doing that. I want to do that.
And you live close to the airport, so you see us taking off and flying over you all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and I seen that, and I thought, you know what? As much as I loved the managing role of it, and I loved the problem solving and all the things that come with it, there's a lot of hustle and bustle. I just missed that crew composite side of things. I missed the roster. I missed my time off. I missed the flying. I missed all that sort of. I just wanted to get back into a routine where it was a routine, because as a manager, I had no routine. I was literally working every single day.
Yeah, you're 24/7.
And even when I wasn't working, the phone was ringing constant.
Yeah.
I don't know how my wife put up with it. Every meal would be stone cold because
I don't know how you put up with it.
The phone would ring, just as my tea was going down, and I'd be on the phone trying to solve somebody's problem or whatever it may be. But yeah,
it's all those things that the guys at the base don't understand what the SAR manager has to deal with. Like those phone calls at stupid o'clock in the morning that you're sorting out so it doesn't affect the guys on duty.
And that's why I chose to do it that way. As a manager, I could have chose to do it a different way. I just chose to be the point of contact for any what we call a grey tasking. So when the guys get a task in, it's pretty straightforward. It's cut and dry. This is what you're going to do. This is where you're going to go. But if there was any grey taskings that came through after 7 o'clock at night when there's nobody at the base, I would be the first point of contact. So yes, I did get phone calls from anything 10 o'clock tonight to 4 o'clock in the morning. Paul, can we send the aircraft here? Paul, can we have the aircraft there? We've got a task in here. Can you release the aircraft? You know, so I used to get on that simply because I didn't want the crews disturbed.
Yeah. And for the people listening to the podcast, like a little bit of background on that is that the unit as it is at the moment and always has been is primarily there for the customers.
Absolutely.
That pay for the service.
It's primarily there for the oil and gas industry who pay into that helicopter.
Yeah. But off the back of that,
we're what's called a non-declared asset. So all your search and rescue aircraft that are operated by Bristow's for the Coast Guard are assets which are declared, which means that the tasking authority can call in direct and say, this is what we've got, this is where you're going. Whereas because we're a non-declared asset, all the taskings that come from the Coast Guard go through our tasking coordinator, and they'll make a decision, but basically their decision is, who do we phone? So you phone Paul. So they phone me, and I will say, yes, if it's immediate and it's out of area, send them. It's going to save somebody's life. There are other ones where I've gone, no, I can't send it. That's too far inland. It's not what we do. We're a maritime asset. So I have to say no. And it breaks my heart to say no to these things, because I know the guys probably could do it.
Yeah.
But you just can't take that risk, because that's not what we train to do.
Yeah.
But also one of the other reasons I kept it from them is because I didn't want them to have to say no. Because as a SAR crew,
you always want to say yes. Yeah.
So I took that option away from them. And I feel it makes life a little bit more easier for them, because then they don't know what they're missing out on, and they don't have to get upset because they've had to say no to something that's out of the area, or it's just not what we do.
And they're also not getting disturbed for jobs that shouldn't be
exactly that.
for.
Yeah, so that's the reason I took that, because I felt that I was doing it to try to,
manage,
reduce any possible fatigue issues with the crews. I wanted the crews to be there to do their immediates and their 6-hour taskings for the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You must have had quite a challenging time as well when you were an interim role as SAR manager, but then full-time SAR manager. We went through a few different iterations of companies.
Do you know what? That wasn't going through different companies. It didn't really bother me, because our job and what we'd done never changed. Okay, nothing changed there. I found that as the manager, when I was at the manager, that my hardest times was dealing with COVID, which was an absolutely terrible time to deal with, and only on a selfish basis. That life for the crews wasn't very easy. Let's put it that way. And also we were dealing with an aircraft that only had one winch on it.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of malfunctions on that winch, which became a very emotive subject within SAR. So trying to manage people's expectations, trying to manage the company's expectations, because the company still wanted us to fly. Yeah. But we had to do it safely. So we had to put lots of barriers in place in order to make it happen.
And that was an aircraft type that wasn't specifically designed for SAR. It was adapted to be SAR due to the L2s being grounded years before.
So the L2 was grounded. The company had nothing in reserves to go out and get 2 SAR aircraft. You don't just pick them off a tree.
No.
And they'd found these 2 what we call limb SAR, which were basically, I think they were like VIP aircraft that had an availability to put a single winch on it. And they took these 2 aircraft over from Romania, and they modified them to the best that they could of what they could get away with. But the fact was, it still had a single winch. And as I say, we went through a couple of issues where we had some issues where we had winch malfunctions, which is not a good place to be.
With a single winch.
With a single winch, when you've got a winch malfunction. So that was a very, very hard time to manage, not as a manager, but trying to manage people's individual expectations. The company at the time was going through changes, and it was a lot of money.
Mm.
And I know they'd say you can't put a price on safety, but they put a price on it. Unfortunately,
Ultimately, there's a price on safety.
Ultimately, it's price of safety. And fair play to the company. Eventually, they put dual winch both aircraft, which I believe, kudos to the company. I believe that we were the first company to retrofit dual winches external of the factories.
Okay.
So, fair play to them. They spent, £2 million on two winches to give us dual winch capability, which for a manager, it was literally weight off my shoulders when that happened. Because everybody's issues, everybody's worries, everybody's anxieties and all that over having a single winch just disappeared. And then it was on to the next problem we had to solve. So it was continuous problem solving. But
just for clarity, that was a previous company that owned the contract that isn't the company at the moment. So Offshore Helicopter Services, which now they took over the running of the company.
Oh, we're talking 2 companies ago.
Yeah, 2 companies ago. So there's there was a lot of difficulties with that aircraft coming in, and then COVID. But rectified and
eventually rectified. But as I say, as a manager, I would say it's probably the 2 hardest things I've had to try and manage is COVID and the single winch issues. That was tough.
Like running a 24-hour shift with SAR crews that try not to interact between each other and still provide a medical service.
It was just every day was a juggle. Literally every day was a juggle. You just wait for a phone call to say, I'm positive. Right. Okay. Where have you been? Okay. Who have you been next? Okay. Right. That's a whole crew. Right. We just taken the whole crew out of it, And there was lots of scenarios where that happened. And then there was lots of scenarios where we didn't have enough crews and we ended up going to 12-hour shifts rather than doing 24-hour shifts. And there was lots of permutations, but that's how my mind was working at that point was, let's just get through this one. Let's just get through this one. Because
I remember coming in on shift and it was like the roster was sorted for that week, and then I think 2 or 3 people went down. So we're like, right, everybody around the table, let's get a bit of paper, let's try and sort out the roster. Let's figure stuff out, because either you were off on holiday or couldn't be contacted, and we're like, right, this will do. We've got a crew, do what we can.
So there was lots of that, but as I say, that it was the good bits outshone the bad bits. I love being a manager. I love being a point of contact. I loved blowing our trumpet. Standing in front of everybody, telling them what we do, how we do it, showing them the bit of kit. They loved all that stuff. And I loved doing it. I loved showing people around, showing them what we do. I like blowing our trumpet because we're not very good at blowing our trumpet.
We are not very good at blowing our trumpet, and that's another good thing for this podcast. I think it's good to tell the community what we do. To highlight the good work that they do. It's extremely difficult at times, like you've touched upon, but the service that is provided for the offshore community in the North Sea is a fantastic service.
I think, as I say, I'll go back to blowing our own trumpet, but we only specialise, our training, we only specialise in maritime. And I think I've been in the game long enough to say that we are bloody good at it. You know what I mean? I have heard stories of people leaving us and going to other companies and looking at a vessel, and they've all talked themselves out of doing it, when the guy that's left us have said, well, I'd be on this boat by now. We wouldn't still be having this conversation. So we are very good at it. We're very methodical. We're very safety driven. At the end of the day, it's all about the service I provide to get you onto a vessel. And that is the be all and end all.
That 4-man team, how we just come together from different walks of life, get in that aircraft and work together for 24 hours and effect those rescues is...
As a manager, I've been asked about this, and I've tried to explain to, the uneducated that when you see teamwork in action, you see a SAR crew work. Okay, it's like poetry in motion. And when you think about everything that the co-pilot's doing, and everything the captain's doing, and everything I'm doing, and we're all speaking at the same time, but we know exactly what to say, when to say it. It's just to deliver that guy onto a moving vessel. The communication is immense, but we take it for granted. because that's all we do. You know, I say, you know, people say to me, what's the most important thing in SAR? I say communication. As if, because believe me, when you've got no communication, it's the worst place you can be.
Yeah.
You know, we've had even comms failures. We have comms failures. Everybody's like, "Whoa, what's going on?" You know, because it's like the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah.
But the communication between, you know, your counterparts, your captain knows exactly what I want when I'm saying what I want, where I'm going. You know, I have to climb onto a specific area, and I'm behind him, so he can't actually see where he's going. So he has to rely on everything I'm telling him, you know. And I'll paint a picture and I'll try and tell him, you know, I won't try, I'll tell him what direction to go in, what speed to go in, you know, how much he's got to go, where the winchman is, how much wire we've got out. So painting this picture for him all the time. So it gives him confidence to know that whatever he's doing, you know, because it all goes wrong. Somebody can get seriously injured.
Yeah, either all of the crew or that winchman alone, or the winchman and the casualty.
Yeah,
but it's like you say, communication is like everybody knows that communication is important, and everybody understands that we must communicate really well to be able to do our jobs. But communicating in a SAR crew,
well, a lot of it is your airmanship skills that you learn as you go along. You pick it up from other people. Your people get mentored. You know, I was mentored for 2 years training to be a winch operator by some great guys, and I'm very grateful for them, because without them, you know, they were trained to take me out of my comfort zone. You know, as a winch operator, training to be a winch operator, as I say, was the hardest thing I've ever done. And their job was to try and take me out of that comfort zone and take it that little bit step further. And, you know, and sometimes you think, I'm never going to get this, because I honestly didn't think I had the mental capacity to take on something else. And then something else, you know, it's like that old, you know, the old fashioned, when you were doing triages in the old days, you know, oh, you've got somebody with a broken leg. Oh, by the way, he's having a heart attack. Oh, by the way, he's broke his arm now. You know, it was a bit like that.
It's just like something else and something else.
It's a bit like that. It just sort of grew arms and legs, you know. So trying to maintain and keep that in was really hard. And then after a while, it just becomes second nature. And then you can take on a little bit more, and then you can take on a little bit more. And it's all to be able to provide the service just for you. That's it. It's just for you.
Yeah.
You know,
Thanks very much. All about me.
Well, mate, you know, I said it earlier on, you know, there's nothing worse than hurry your winchman. And you well know, I have been in a situation where I winched you and you've sustained an injury, you know, and it was the worst day ever. You know, it was a terrible day anyway. But to then at the end of the day have your winchman hurt, you know, it's for me, it was just, I was heartbroken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we get into that a little bit? Should we, try to talk about a few different things. So we've talked about your career and how you got to be where you are, basically, and you're back now on the line as a winch operator, loving life. You get to work with me again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is like, that's the best day at work, isn't it?
It's a gift.
It's a gift. I am the gift that keeps on giving. But we also talk about, I tried to highlight that one job that stands out at the front of your head whenever I say, like, or anybody asks you, like, tell me about the most serious job that you've ever done within search and rescue. It's like that day that you came to work, like, what was the job that stands out for you?
I suppose, well, I mean, there's only one job that really stands out for me, which would be the Voss sailor tasking that we got. So I think I'd probably been a winch op for about a year. I think I hadn't been long as an operation winch op. We'd been on the Miller platform, and because there was big seas, it was a big storm, because of the winds, we were flown back to Aberdeen, and we resumed our position from Aberdeen rather than from the Miller.
Yeah.
So we were in the, I want to say the Ski and Do Hotel, but I can't remember what the name of the hotel was.
Was it Menzies?
Yeah, Hallmark.
Yeah. One of them.
I'm sure it was a Ski and Do at one point. Anywho,
a salubrious hotel next to the airport.
Yeah. Anyway, we were in there, and I got a knock on the door like 4 o'clock in the morning from the captain, Graham, who said, "We've got a tasking, fishing. A vessel had an issue." I'm like, okay, so as normal, just, you know, there was no rushing. Just get up, get dressed, jump in the car, go across there, get the information. Okay, so the information was a standby vessel called the Voss Sailor had taken a rogue wave The wheelhouse had been crushed, and it was believed at that point, when we got a call, believed one person missed. 11 people accounted for. As I say, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. We'd had a real good storm brewing for the last couple of days.
Yeah. It was
December. It was February. As I say, 4 o'clock in the morning. It was pitch black. It wasn't just black. It was pitch black. And I remember flying out there. I don't get worked up or anything like that when I go on that task. And I just try and think, right, well, what we're going to need. Right, we're going to need strops. Is Winch going to get himself ready? Is he part of the battling thing? Just things that go through your head, You try and get two-way with a vessel. We couldn't get two-way with a vessel. And eventually we did. And I think that one of the guys had handheld you.
Yeah. And like you said, it was pitch black. And we didn't fly with goggles.
No, we didn't fly with goggles, no. So we had a flower, so we found them on flower.
Yeah.
So we came across this vessel, which was quite a large standby vessel. It had lost all its power. It was sitting it was beam on into the swell. And we're talking 6-meter swells plus. Big swells, 60 mile an hour winds. It was a really shocking night, early doors in the morning. And we get there, and we get on scene, and we start looking at what we can do. Where can you get winchman on? How are we going to time this? And it was just, the boat was just a mess. It was just raising itself up, falling back down again, raising itself, and because it could beam onto it as well, it was it wasn't an easy thing.
It was completely opposite direction from what we would usually winch to as well.
It was 90 degrees out.
The whole picture of what we were seeing was
completely different.
Yeah.
We'd obviously always have a vessel steaming into wind. We were in wind this time. It was 90 degrees out of wind. It was beam on into the sea. We normally had it into the sea so we can time the movements. So it had no power. So we eventually, I think if I remember rightly, we want to go now, but remember rightly, we got hold of one of the guys on the deck. They were absolutely petrified. We could see them all huddled in a corner on the top deck, and he had a VHF radio. We managed to speak to him, and I explained to him I was going to put highline down, so we decided we're going to do highline. And he went, yeah, fine, okay, I understand, yeah. His English wasn't the greatest, but he said he understood anyway. So put a highline down, and it's on the, we've taken us ages even to get over the vessel now to put the highline down. And he just stood there and watched it and looked at it. And we're like, are you going to do something? And then next thing, highline got washed off. We're like, right, okay.
Both of us sitting in the doorway looking at each other going, oh my God.
Yeah, right, okay, we're going to have to do this the dirty way. So we abandoned the highline. And then we decided, right, we're going to go live and we're going to try and get Andy down there. And I think there was more than probably 4 or 5 attempts to get you anywhere near that vessel. And anytime you got anywhere near it, it just dropped or, it listed out of the way. So eventually there was a time when I could release you. However, I may have released you at the same time the vessel was coming up, and you landed quite hard and you ended up breaking your foot. Now, obviously, I'm not concerned about anybody else there. I'm now concerned about winchman.
Yeah.
And you'd quite rightly said, look, I'm fine. I have hurt it, but I can carry on. And fair play to you, you did.
Yeah.
And I mean,
at that point, I hadn't realised what had happened.
Well, adrenaline was probably
pumping through.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know how you managed to stand up on that vessel. I mean, it was all over the shop.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we managed to establish another highline with you on the deck. And then we started taking guys off one at a time. And even that wasn't easy. These guys were very little English, very little understanding of what it is we were trying to achieve, even though they were wanting to get back up, their backpacks on and everything. It was a real, you had a lot of work to do down there just to try and control them and even cajole them back out onto the deck to get them stropped, to get them back up to the aircraft.
Yeah. They were scared, worried, being on that vessel for hours before we got
lost
there.
One of their men. It turned out that one of the men had suffered a fatality and was still on the vessel. We couldn't get to him. There was just too much damage to the vessel, so we couldn't get to him. So our main concern was to get the guys that we could get off. So and this is why this job sticks out in my mind. And it's not about the job itself. It's about what went wrong in the job. It's not about what went right. But during the 9th pick up. So we picked up 8 guys. I put a winch down to you for the 9th guy, and within a split second, that boat had moved, and the cable had somehow got wrapped around the handrail on the aft end and pinged off. And I literally had a winch malfunction. I had no winch at that point.
Yeah.
Now, prior to this happening, about 20 minutes before that, a Coast Guard helicopter turned up. So we used the Coast Guard to light up our area for us. So they were standing off and above us, but they were lighting up the area for us. Now, this time, it was starting to get a bit dusk because, light was starting to come in. It was like 5:30 in the morning. Things were starting to brighten up a little bit. And I remember going through the procedure, right, with the winch malfunction, let's go back and left, let's reassess and all the rest of it. And I was going to go through the process of going for the secondary winch and then carrying on with the secondary winch. Yeah. And just at that point, my captain went, hold on a minute, Paul. There's another asset behind us. They've got a winchman as well. As long as Andy's happy, and we were two-way with Andy at that time, as long as Andy's happy, let's leave Andy established on that. Let the Coast Guard pick up the last 3 guys with Andy, and we'll meet them all back at the airport. And you know what? It was like, he's just suggested something that I should have thought about. With the aircraft. Well, we're not going to use that. Why didn't we just say, we'll take half, you take half? Yeah. But it was just the nature of the beast.
Because Graham had quite a lot of experience, hadn't he?
Graham had a huge amount of it. He was a very experienced captain, ex-military. The majority of our pilots were all ex-military, so very, very experienced. Really great sets of hands.
The capacity that he must have had at that point in time.
And he's flying in these conditions, and we're getting thrown all over the place with the winds and everything else. And for him to just go, you know what, Paul, we don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Let's just leave Andy down there. He's got a high line. They'll just establish it again, and he'll crack on. We're like, right, okay. And so, at that point, it was like, just relax.
Just get at that point, I saw you close the door and fly away from me and leave me.
Well, yes, but we another aircraft was right behind us.
Right behind us.
It was like 2 buses, mate, one in, one out. And then we got back to Aberdeen. We got all these poor guys out. They were absolutely petrified, freezing cold, soaking wet, and we looked after them as best we can at the base.
It was the most traumatic day in their life that they'd ever experienced. And we don't take that fully into account, I don't think. Especially at the time, we don't take that into account.
Oh,
because it is normality for us.
Yeah, certainly
we're
not
just
at the
cracking
time.
on and doing it.
Yeah, it's only when you look back.
It's only when you look back.
These guys must have been absolutely petrified.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think they ever spoke. I got them in the aircraft and I pointed to the seat and I put them down and I strapped them in and they just,
Ashen.
Yeah. Some of them were ashen. Some other ones you could just see a huge sight. Like literally. I'm going to go home now. I'm going to get home now. Because as I say, they'd already lost one person.
But at that point, you're now in the back of the aircraft with, 8 guys. You don't know if they've got medical conditions that you then need to deal with.
Nope.
You've got another hour's transit to get back to the airport.
Yeah.
You've the back of your head, you've got me on the boat.
Yeah.
You don't know how that rescue's going. There's all this sort of stuff going on.
I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, eventually we did hear, because obviously we were two-way with the Coast Guard, but we did hear that, you completed and you were now with them en route back, because you were only like 20 minutes behind us or something like that. So to me it was just a case of making sure that these guys were starting to warm up, get some towels and blankets on and get the heat on into the aircraft, visually check for anything that I could, try and talk to the ones that could understand me, because obviously the industry's completely changed now with the workforces offshore. Sometimes you do have problems trying to understand what probably somebody's trying to tell you. My Polish is not as good as my English.
What, for being an Aberdonian? Even though you're not an Aberdonian.
No. I'm what they call Scotch at heart. Scotch at heart.
Yeah, but it's like, even like you said, it's all the things that went wrong that we probably take learning from more off of that situation. Like, even when you go back to the airport, the receiving unit that was set up, we'd never done any mass casualty receiving at that point.
Nope.
So that was new.
No. I remember us all, people running up to stores to get blankets and uniforms, because these guys, some of them wasn't even dressed. They literally got straight out of their bed and they were
second crew had come in to assist.
you know, they were literally in survival suits and their pajamas. You know, they had no clothes, so we were running around getting, you know, uniforms from their stores to try and give them something to wear before ambulances come turn up and take them away. But that was quite a hard one for not just us, but obviously for the company as well. And we were, as you say, very fortunate that the other crew came in to help with the, you know, arrival of these guys, and because we also had you coming in on the Coast Guard helicopter, which doesn't normally come from our side. So now we've got even more people coming in. You know? I think eventually, you know, worked well in the end, but there was a lot of last minute need to get this done. You know, need to get that done. But yeah, touch wood.
And it was a big job. Like you said, you were pretty new to being a winch operator at that time. You'd been in SAR for 5 years, 6 years, but new as a winch operator. I was a new winchman. Co-pilot Nick, he was new as well. New ab initio. He started at the same time as I did. And Graham, who was a really
Graham has probably kept us all together. He was sort of like the strongest link between us all, you know, without a doubt. He definitely had the capacity to as I say, just stop and go. Actually, we've got some. There's another option here, Paul.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And I think that everything that happened within that rescue, generally quite a new crew. 3 of us inexperienced in an experience level. Everything that went wrong, how we adapted and overcame those situations, how I then had to work with a different company with their procedures on a different comms unit, still affected the rescue, everything that happened with that. And us as a crew, we were very fortunate to get recognised for that.
We were.
As the whole crew, yourself and I got the Billy Deacon. The rest of the crew, we got the Shipwreck Mariners, the Edward Maisie and Lewis Award from Shipwreck Mariners. And that's great for the industry. It's
absolutely.
Like all those sort of recommendations.
I believe that we were the first non-Coast Guard, non-military crew to ever receive the Billy Deacon Award. So it's something we should be proud of it.
Yeah, you know? Absolutely. Yeah. And we got to meet a funny little gentleman.
We got to meet Prince Philip. People can't do it now, like, can they? You know, it was a fantastic day. We got to go to St James's Palace. You know, our wives were amazing. It had a great day, a great experience, and something that Libya often says, you know, when are you going to get the next one? Somebody's got to be put in harm before I get to go and do it. You know, I said, you want me to put my life at risk just so you can go down and buff paddle? She's like, yeah. Fully kidding. But yeah, she does ask, you know.
Time's ticking, Paul. You don't got much time left.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But all right, okay. Serious story aside, you've definitely had some jobs in your career, but that is one that sticks out.
Oh, I think it'll always stick out.
That sticks out in the unit. Everybody knows that story. It's there.
Yeah,
it's part of the history of the unit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But you must have had some funny stories as well. But being Prince Philip was a funny story.
It was a funny story. I won't repeat the jokes that you told us. He was switched on, sharp as a tack.
Yeah,
I mean, we're talking he must have been, I don't know, very late 80s when we met him. He was sharp as a tack, very funny, loved women. Obviously, he had he certainly made a beeline for the female side of the male side of the conversations.
Yeah, he wasn't fussed that we were there.
No, he wasn't fussed. No, absolutely not. No. But funny, I mean, we laugh all the time in SAR. You know, there's always something we're laughing at, whether it's somebody or something or whatever it is. But the job itself, it is so serious that you kind of, it's not really time when you laugh when you doing SARS.
No,
I mean, the funniest thing, I think the funniest thing that it was that I remember we landed on ARI and it was film crews day. We'd obviously done a quite a big job that film crews were there watching us come in, and I remember jumping. It was L2 at the time, so it was quite a high aircraft. I remember jumping out and I still had my Wonder Lead on and I was still attached to the aircraft, and I went to go and jump out. Oh, Lord, easy. And then I'm like, oh my God. And they've got it all on film. You know, I'm like, oh my God, how could only happen to me? And you know what? I still do it now. I still jump out of the aircraft sometimes when I'm on a pad and go, oh,
everybody's done it off.
Yeah. But, you know, as I say, I can't think of funny stories that.
There's lots of funny things.
There's lots of funny things that happen. Yeah, I mean, we do laugh a lot. It is a a fun place to be. You know,
Yeah.
we've got every place has got characters. We've got some characters that are just funny.
Yeah.
Like they just got to open their mouth and they're funny.
Yeah.
They don't even have to say anything.
They just send
You just
out
have to
banter.
look at them and they're funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a funny place. You know, it is a fun place to be. But yeah, funny stories. Nah, I don't really have any fun stories because, as I say, it's quite
None that we
serious
want
stuff.
to share anyway.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's more like it. Yeah.
Right. 2 more questions and then we'll wrap it up. One is, you've had a different sort of career, like paint a decorator,
Colourful.
colourful, variety, SAR manager, back on the line
Bit
now.
spicy.
But if you to pass on any key bits of information that you would pass on to anybody to encourage them to get into SAR or chase that career, is there anything that you would say?
Don't be scared to try. Honestly, don't be scared to try. Don't be scared to apply. You know, when I was the site manager, one of the things I always used to get all the time was, how do you become a winchman? How do you become this? How do you become that? And I used to say to them, look, as much as I would like to say, well, all you've got to have is a bit of, you know, common sense about you and a can-do attitude and be resilient, you know, all the nice things you would say. But basically, all I'm trying to say is, look, unless you're a paramedic, unfortunately, nowadays, it's the minimum standard.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky, and the 7 other guys that started with me in 2005 were very lucky that we got into an industry where that level wasn't set then.
Mm-hmm.
It's now set in stone now.
Yeah.
Why would you have somebody on the end of a winch that, when you get there, can't give definitive care? You know, you've got to go for the best, and I believe that's what we've got.
Yeah.
So that's the level that's required. But for any budding paramedic or, you know, a paramedic that's budding air crewman, is just don't give up.
Yeah.
Just don't give up. If you've got the ability to become a paramedic, then you can become an air crewman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a lot harder, I think. You know,
It is now. It's like,
and the opportunities are very far and few between. So
they're different now, I think.
but the industry has the ability to pick and choose. They will cherry pick exactly who they want.
Yeah.
And quite rightly, you know, it's quite a unique industry you're getting into. It's a unique skill set. You're in a very small community.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not known, you're known of.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's true what they say. If somebody doesn't know you, you're only a phone call away from somebody that does know you.
Yeah.
You know, so
there's 11 bases in the UK. Throw in the Falklands, there's 12.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
That's
you know.
it.
So
and
yeah,
everybody's worked with everybody.
It's a small industry, and yeah, I would say, don't give up. You know, it is a tough one to get into, but honestly, it is so much worth it. You have no idea. One of my regrets, and I don't have many, one of my regrets is getting into this job too late.
Okay.
Because I'm now coming at the end. You know, I'm 60 now. I've only got a couple of more years where, you know, I'm now questioning myself, do I really be working on my knees for the next 3 or 4 years? You know, because we are a small aircraft. It does take its toll on your body. As much as you try and fit, you know, try and stay fit and supple and agile, all these sorts of things. Being on your knees for hours at a time, which we can be when we're in the back of that aircraft working away. You know, I'm now thinking, you know, do I want to be doing this? And
yeah.
so yeah, my regret
you
is,
need to look after your knees with the amount of golf you play. That retirement golf is calling.
Oh, yeah, that's a thing of dreams. But yeah, my one regret would be I didn't get into this sooner. You know, I always knew that I wanted to do something more exciting, and I can't get more exciting than this job. It's it's a brilliant job. Yes, you are very professional, and yes, you have to keep up with everything, and yes, you have to take all this information in. But once you know it, it's just a great place to be. It really is a great place to be. I love doing it.
I love how small a community it is.
And that's why I say everybody either knows of you or they know you.
Yeah.
You know, it is a very small. I mean, I know people that know me have never met me.
Yeah, it is.
People talk about socks. Well, who socks? Yeah, it's one of them things, isn't it? You know?
Yes.
So yeah, and I think I've made a lot of good friends over the 20 odd years that I've been. I've had the opportunity to and been very grateful to work with some amazing people. You know, I'm talking really hot pilots. You know, phenomenal hands on experience, like, and they taught me a lot as well. You know, they understood that I didn't come from an aviation experience, so I would ask more questions. You know, as I said to you before, we love acronyms. You know, and I'd be like, what? What are we doing? We're doing an NDB to the LVP to the AR. Oh my God! Right, no, explain that to me slowly, please.
Yeah, what's one of them again?
Because we love it, and we just expect everybody to know what they are. You know, so for the first, you know, getting into that was my big thing. It was like just getting asking questions. You know, and don't be scared to ask a question.
Yeah,
because there's no such thing as a silly question. It's only a silly answer. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
If there's one person that you think that would have some really good bits and a good story that I could have on this podcast, who would you recommend? Or two, or whatever?
I'd not necessarily recommend any one person, but as you've chosen me from a non-aviation background to tell my story, I think somebody like, we've got quite a few pilots that have came through the academy system that the company put in place some years ago.
Yeah.
And so these are guys that have not come from an aviation experience, and they've become pilots, and then they've done crew change, and then they've been co-pilots. And we've now got a couple of them that are captains on SAR. I think they would have an interesting story to tell, you know, especially for budding pilots, you know.
Yeah.
What's the process of how do you do this?
How'd you get to there?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think you've got a couple of options. I'm not going to mention any names because then I'll feel like I'm pressurizing them. But there are some pilots, and you know them, who have come through that stage, and I think they have an interesting story to tell.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to get a few of the front seat guys on the podcast as well.
Yeah,
it's good to have that story on how they get there.
Yeah,
because it's a 4-man team.
I was just waiting to say, you know, we can't do anything without them, and they can't do anything without us. You know, so yeah, as you say, it's a 4-man team. So yeah, definitely give them a shout. Yeah.
Cool. Right, Paul,
Andrew,
thank you very much.
You're
mate.
welcome.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Cool.